Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Anna. So I was just telling them that I just came back from Basel, so I'm still kind of overwhelmed by this Art Basel experience for my first time. But now I'm like back and grounded and trying to hit the road and continue with our next video interview to two very experienced therapists who specializes in one is an artist therapist, one is um, family psychologist therapist with cognitive behavior therapy. I have never received any sessions myself, so I just know the theory in paper. I'm never experienced, so I'd like to also take the opportunity to kind of collect some questions, so I can also like consult on the community's behalf to the experts. They both practice with a license. One have a private practice for the last 18 years, super experienced psychologist. So I think it's also an opportunity to see how we can get most out of their knowledge, and maybe even like to have it as an ongoing conversation if they're up to.
That's cool.
Have you had any experience with, like, I don't know, art therapy or?
Chad is involved with a lot of, he's not an art therapist, but he goes and speaks at art therapy conventions, which happen in the United States. And they're big. You go there and there's hundreds of people there who are art therapists who have, they're trained and they're licensed and they have a whole group. A lot of them are academics. They're almost all women, which is really interesting. Very few men in art therapy. They're sort of unicorns, but they're there. Yeah, they're a very interesting group of people, and I think they do great work. Yeah, so I've never personally done art therapy myself, but I have been involved with cognitive behavior therapy when my son had some mental illness issues, and that was very intense. That's like the whole family goes, extended family support group, and you go into these really heavy duty sessions and you do behavior therapy. So you are doing things. And because my son had an eating disorder, that involved us all going and eating meals together. So it was pretty interesting.
Wow. I didn't know I thought it's more like, you lay on a couch and you start telling your own stories and then you fall asleep. But I would imagine a
No,
bit
I
like,
think cognitive behavior therapy is really activities. It's the behavior, it's doing things. It's not talk therapy. It can involve in talk therapy, but yeah, it's the behavior. And I think that's where the art comes in, and art would be art guided art projects that lead to better understanding between family members or whatever. Yeah.
oh, cool. I've actually told around maybe 10 people, artists who was kind of not sure which direction to go. So, but the art reflects healing and trauma and using art as a tool to cope with the difficulties and challenges in life. So I said, why don't you investigate a bit art therapy? Go into that, check that. And I would say all 10 responses was, what is that? And after I explained, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, I don't want to heal people. I want to heal me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I make art to heal me. I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to go into counseling, like, and I was like, wait, that's a good point, because when people talk about art therapy, it's using art as a therapy, but then it goes both ways. I guess you need, like, in a classroom, you need like a professor, you need students, and if everyone want to be cured, then who is the one who conducted, right?
Right. Yeah, and we just had a resident here about a month ago who had a career in art therapy, and she finally retired because exactly that. She said, I want to do my own work. So she, during those years when she was an art therapist, she could not make her own work. She was too busy. In the beginning, she was too busy working with clients, and then you become an administrator administering other art therapists because you have a big program that you're running, and that was her career, but she didn't get to do her own work.
True. But how do you, or like, how do they, more like they, because, maybe all the person who are here on the screen don't, how can I say, don't have this conflict, but how to handle the conflict of using art as a tool to heal myself, yet it creates a product to have other people paying for. Like, I always say I love massages, but you're not going to pay for me to have a massage, right? Like, I pay the masseuse. So what is exactly that dynamic? What do you think is your observation? Is like why the fruit I create from healing myself is useful for someone else to acquire? Because if the goal is to please the market, then I make art that please the market or the collectors, or like commission work. But what about if I'm using the work as a process to heal me? Why can I, or how can I, or should I sell it?
If I can cut shortly, because everyone is here. There's Christine Mycomber, likely she doesn't, and Tai. There's Major, you don't know yet, newcomer, and joining. So he will be joining the residency likely if there's no Third World War.
Yeah.
And so I sent an email with you of all the contact. I added also the Instagram because every artist is joining Instagram, is using Instagram mainly. So, and to frame the conversation. So likely every month we have because thanks to Laura, we are putting a subject, we are putting a theme on the conversation, and then we are taking some notes. And the idea is that maybe in the future is for you to join on an article or on a video, or to be cited and to push for more collaboration work, and to link with subjects. So
and usually the subject is linked with the production that we do, like video.
And then the subject today will be linked with a residency we have with a young adult artist working. Is a young adult. She's working on. She has a very introspective work, and so she has some traumas and anxiety, and in the world we are living today is pretty common, and in our culture, it's something that is often it's what we call a drive, likely is from a negative past. In our culture, traditionally, big artists, they push in the storytelling. We push a big event that is bad, that becomes a drive, and but also it's a work of introspection. And like you told Mo, is it's a solitary path, and it's something you do for yourself. And the paradox is that at the same time, is something as an artist, as an individual, you need to create a value for people to be interested in and exchange with monetary value or something else. So you need to make a living, and this is very funny because business, the origin of it is buzziness, and it has nothing to do with negotiation. Like, it's being busy, that's all. Okay, you want to work, this is more like craft, making something with your hands and becoming busy, and And for the artist, it's a work of introspection. It's do what you do, be inspired and work on yourself, and then your value will come by itself. And I know with Charlotte, for example, there are traumas, you're working on that, and we were discussing with that. With Laura also, we were discussing about that. But then if you heal yourself, if you work on yourself, how to make it as a value, and there's a word about it. It's called individuation. Is find your place in the society, linking your drive with your place in the society. And this is a paradox because of a Western culture. The artist path is solitary. And what we try to do in Very Private Gallery is the opposite of it. We try to put people in together, working together, going against the idea of the artist. There are many groups, many artists that are working together, but traditionally the signature on the work is alone. And your project, every of your projects is a solitary project. Not Anna, but otherwise most of the artists in the community they are like that. And the therapy, I just make the introduction, then I stop. The therapy, come back to the therapy, is also a solitary process. There are groups, like Anna, you told, there are groups, meetings, and community talk and things like that. But when you work with a therapist, you meet alone a person. It's like a confessional. It's the same process as the Christian system when you speak to a priest, because again, Western society. And so likely if you want to make something work, you need to group with others that have similar drive, similar message, and is the way you come to make something that works in the society. In the way as individuation is to find similar people with who you will likely disagree, but try to agree to disagree and work together and to make something together. Otherwise, at the end, you will be working for others, like Walt Disney or things like that, because they have their way. And in liberal society, it's pyramidal. There's a hierarchy. So yeah, the idea is to be talking about that, the paradox between the traumas, and the research to confront, to process, process trauma and confront your anxiety in the world today, and making it as a business, but business as a negotiation, finding your place in the society. And I shut up.
Hey, Greg, Mo, I miss y'all after our spring intensive. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Greg, thanks for sending me a link since I had trouble with the first one. I would really like to respond to what you and Mo and Anna were just saying. And I just have a lot of thoughts about that. First, art as therapy, whether we want to help others or be an individual or connect with others, there is something therapeutic about it. And I teach workshops, and oftentimes at the very start of the workshop, I'm reminded that the people are almost there for therapy. I mean, I'm not trying to categorize or be condescending, or not everybody has the same reaction, but it is a very therapeutic process. And so I think it's helpful just to acknowledge that that's part of what people are coming for and needing. And then I'd also like to say that I did the artist residency with Greg and Mo. And I think Greg, poor Greg, was probably like, oh my God, I'm her therapist now. I mean, because we really dug into some topics that were hard to talk about, or that I've been indecisive about for reasons that I didn't really understand. So that was extremely helpful. I'm still really processing all that and reflecting on that and trying to make some decisions about that. But it's gotten me a lot farther having done the residency. And then I would also like to say about what you said about individuals versus the collective, or what Mo said about people wanting to make work to heal themselves, but not necessarily think about, is this going to heal others, or am I trying to heal others? And that is, and y'all probably heard this, but I'm finally understanding it a little bit better. That's the idea of making work that really touches something deep inside you and that's really important to you, and using the best materials to communicate that, making the best work you can to communicate that, and then not really trying to control or worry about how other people respond. The people who respond are the natural fits for that work. So it's kind of this, not necessarily linear, but kind of this process of, it might start out as healing and processing your own stuff, but then once you put it out there, like Mo said, it becomes a product. And so maybe you decide not to put it out there and you're like, I'm not selling it, I'm just doing this for myself. I don't need to sell it. I have a job elsewhere, or an income from elsewhere. But if you do put it out there, it can go from the individual to more of a, not produced collectively necessarily, but to impacting others. And the people who identify with it are kind of maybe struggling with the same things, or they get it, or it helps them see something that they've been wanting to understand better. And then on the individual collective thing, on working together, I had a lot of fear about that, because like, how are you supposed to connect with somebody who's going to like kind of align with you, or you're going to align with them, and you just happen to click? It almost seems like a needle in a haystack sometimes, especially if we've been raised to be super independent and maybe not collaborate. So I realized that you can try to think, or I can try to think of it as basis. Like, I'm not getting married. I'm not committing my life and my whole career to this person. We're going to find out what we have in common and see, like, if we can just brainstorm for fun and collaborate on a project together. And we're going to put a timeline on it. We're going to say, we're going to work on this for 6 months together, and then reevaluate and see where it goes. And you know, you kind of have to match up with someone who maybe you have a similar work ethic as, but not necessarily materials or ideas or culture or background, but just someone who y'all are aligned with each other and committed to the project. I think sometimes it can be scary to sign up for a group thing, because some of us have memories of group projects when we were children in school. And it seems like growing up, when we had group projects where I grew up, there was always the person who kind of like took over. There was always the person, at least one, who blew it off and did nothing, but took all, just took the credit and got the same grade as everybody. And then there were always a couple of like followers, doers, so it was kind of like you fell into one of those three categories. And if you were not the person who blew the project off, it was always kind of frustrating to be working with people who maybe weren't very committed to the project, and how to resolve. But those are just life lessons, like how to resolve that, who to partner with, like figuring all that out. Okay, so I know I responded to like 4 different things, but I just got it all out there all at once, and I'll zip it. Thank y'all.
Yeah, I'd love to say something too, if that's all right, just in terms of, I think you said a lot of cool things there. And, for me, I'm a classically trained painter. I went to Laguna College of Art and Design. And so my focus is really on, like Renaissance methodology and technique. And I'm really, like, if I were to show you my studio right now, it's like everything is centered on understanding, the materials that they were using, how they used them, and how it made these paintings that lasted for a very, very long time. And, when we kind of talk about getting together with people, right? I think, and how there's a fear of that, or I think even more importantly, there's a sort of a pervasive cultural notion through most of the West that, you have to do, especially in America, like you have to do things on your own, right? There is that, and then especially in the visual arts, it sort of happened in the 19th century where we began to have the seed kind of planted of like the bohemian, right? These people who had to do things individually and they were alone in their studio and it was again all by themselves. But when in reality most of art history it was a collective effort, right? It's like really how many Rembrandts or Titians are just Rembrandt or Titian, right? It's more than likely a collaborative effort of apprentices and hired help doing various portions of the painting, especially during a time when you can just squeeze oil paint out in a tube, and have all you needed prepared for you, ready in the store for when you needed more. It had to be made every day, and so you couldn't be making these extravagant beautiful paintings that took, in their case, maybe several months to a year to make. On their own, it would have taken probably much longer than that. And so I think for me, a big part of what's helped my mental health and my emotional outreach lately is actually just going out and being part of groups of people who they don't even have to be, painters, right? They're just like-minded individuals who are really passionate about their own fields. And we get together and we meet and we just literally, hang out, right? And we just do those things. But then for me, wanting to also get to a point where it can transcend that and actually have people be involved in the work that I do, right? And so for me, I think like art is not so much therapy. It's a goal that can kind of be difficult to surmount or to figure out, right? And so I need other people around me who are able to kind of say, well, you need to think about this, and did you try going about something this way? And so I think that's, for me, that's the hard part, is I've been lacking that, and wanting to be around people more now, and being in a rural area, that's way harder, right? I'm not even in a city, so yeah, I don't know if that was very coherent or not, but hopefully it makes sense.
Major, remind me where you live.
I'm in central Pennsylvania.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, it's not exactly a brimming artists capital.
Well, so we have 4 people based in the US here?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Cool. I'm in Tempe, Arizona, so like Phoenix area. So also not exactly a art area, but it's a city-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I think it's really cool. Everyone had like really interesting perspective on this, and I think just under the art therapy umbrella, I think so far we've been like kind of looking at it from a very artist perspective, but I think an art therapist does more therapy than art. I've had I guess schoolmates that end up pursuing master degree in art therapy. They don't necessarily produce art themselves in a sense, like Anna has mentioned. They really focus on using art for patient to express and explore what had happened and how to move forward, things like that. And for an artist, how art can be therapy for us, I think for us, it's the process of making it, right? And that kind of touched on what we're talking about, being individual and collective. I think there's a saying, art is only yours until it's done. Once you finish your painting, the painting is no longer yours because you have an audience, and the audience interpretation paints the other half of the story. And that also touches on what we mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, like, so do we make art for ourselves, healing ourselves, or do we make art with the mind of like, okay, how would the audience react to it? And I think there are a few ways to look at it. There are very commercial art from my background. I graduated with illustration background. Like, it's very commercial. Like, you have a client, you have your prompt, and you make it. That's straightly 100% you're making art for an audience. But then when we kind of cross the line into fine art, which is kind of where I want to pursue, you get a little more my personal stories into it. But I feel like great art usually doesn't necessarily keep the audience in mind. And like Laura said, you know, when you finish your art, the people who can relate to it, who can be affected by it emotionally, they will see it. They will come and they will, you know, have an emotional react to your finished painting. So yeah, kind of my thoughts on everything that everyone kind of mentioned. Yeah, and my name is Charlotte. I just I don't know how to change the name on my thing, but yeah, I'm Charlotte. Yeah.
I do want to say something after I hear everybody's perspective is very enriching for me to understand. And I feel the more I hear it, the more I sense that for an artist who, so nature and nurture, or, you know, born talent or working hard, I've, you know, always had this struggle of, you know, is artists or like successful artists in the position were born in a certain family with a certain, let's say, sensibility, like biological sensibility, that they have a lot more percentage success than someone who were born in a more awkward situation, like the ghetto, and trying to make it to, you know, Basel. Obviously, I see the distance and I tell myself there's no way. And I went to Basel. Of course, I look around the whole venue of maybe 20,000 people. I knew all of the venue 20,000 people. They have not experienced hunger. They have grown up in their parents' house, and their property belonged to their family. And I could see that not one single person was below, you know, what is the UNESCO poverty line, or, you know, what is the marginalized or endangered species of human being. And even our struggle, our trauma was caused by a certain kind of, let's say, environment, upbringing, and it's very different. Like my trauma when I was young is when I was 4 years old, I had a swollen cheeks because my grandparents couldn't bring me to dentist. They didn't know what was dentist. They were born, you know, pre-industrial, so they had not even entered a clinic in their whole life. So my biggest struggle is my teeth hurt, is inflamed, and I would have like pus. I would press and the pus come out. And at 4 years old, I'll just press all afternoon, thinking, you know, why it's like this. And I didn't have the solution. I was too young. So obviously, it was a certain economic, certain time. But I feel like I expressed my frustration, and nobody would be able to kind of not any purchasing power, not any market can say, oh yeah, I would resonate and purchase, because that would not be a problem that would touch people who have money to buy it. Therefore, if I wasn't born in a certain environment, have certain trauma, I didn't have the right kind of trauma to express my trauma, to trade for empathy. Let's say I wasn't the right candidate. And I feel like even trauma is a luxury when you can monetize it. Maybe I'm understanding trauma in the wrong way, or I'm saying it in a too brutal way, but I feel like certain people express their trauma, like, and I go, like, okay, and like, and but I don't understand, but why? Like, not having a private jet. Like, I was watching a, you know, like Graham's reality, like financial reality show, where people come and express their financial travel, and I've heard people express their frustration not having a private jet as a frustration because all their friends have. And I was like, wow, that is, you know, obviously not everyone can say, you know, I would resonate with this emotion, and I would stick to, or like this person, or agree with the value of this person. And I, you know, my struggle is how can we use our own trauma or frustration, or maybe use, it sounds very like take advantage of, not in that sense, but when we express it, what kind of emotions can treat into market value? Which kind of trauma can bring me money, let's say?
Oh.
What was it?
I think
Not.
I think that's
point?
very interesting. Very interesting. especially because I think you're very experienced in the, the art fair gallery. Like you've seen the scene, what it's in there. So it's very interesting to hear your perspective from there. And this is like kind of like a very initial meeting like me and Greg had was kind of also like it was along the line with this because I think me and Greg were thinking, like me, I'm like an outsider everywhere. It's I don't necessarily belong to any group, anything, and whatever I've been through is not what our buyer would have understand. And you know what they say, like you have to wear expensive clothes to sell expensive things. And I feel like that comes like when it comes to like art, there's that too. Like they say they want to like have like an emotional piece that came from a very dark place, but then their dark place is a very specific dark place. So yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from, but then I think also just on the brighter side of things, like it's like how much as an artist you're gonna fold in for capitalism, like at the end of the day, artists are just gonna do their own thing, and then I think we all think that we have very unique experiences as human, but I think no human experiences is ever really that unique. What I've been through, maybe I have not found in a person that has been through the exact same thing, but if I put it out there, maybe there thousands, millions of people that has been through the same thing. They might not be rich, but that's okay. I might still have a huge audience that does not have huge buying power, but that's okay. So I think it's a constant struggle as an artist to have to figure out how to make a living as an artist, because when we make art, it's never for money. Money is great, but then to make a living, you have to think about money, right? So that kind of like is where I'm at. I'm 26 years old, and I did not come from a background that could sustain me as an artist. I came to America with a full ride, and my family is in Hong Kong. Just they live in public housing, so everything I have today is like I made it here myself. So that's kind of the background. But then I really understand, like, okay, I can't just sit here and make paintings, wait for like 10 years and see if anything will work, if spaghetti will stick on the wall. So, after a few meetings with Greg and Mo, and some opportunities came up. So I'm actually going to open a business that's art related, but not necessarily art. It's more commercial. It's like going to be a craft studio kind of. So my thinking is I'm an artist. I'm going to make my money somewhere else that can protect my peace as an artist, that I can make art for myself. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where I'm at with, what Mo kind of talking about.
Anna, you have something to say?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking that's a good strategy. If you're making work about trauma for yourself because it helps you feel better and it helps you express it, you can show it, and maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you need to set that aside and make some other work that is more commercially acceptable. Some of the work, I'm trying to think of like what work that I studied in art history or I taught in art history was about trauma that is so powerful that, I'm thinking about those artists who worked in Europe after World War II. And they've seen these horrible, horrible things. Yeah, and the guys who slashed the canvas, I can't even remember their names. They were Italian.
Fontana.
Yeah,
Fontana.
and they would sew it and slash it and like make these paintings. And I don't know if they ever had success during their lifetimes. They may have died, in poverty or suicide or whatever. But now the work is in museums because it's so powerful. It's like, this is what happened. This was what we saw in World War II, So I think it's, really valid to make work about trauma, but expecting it to be saleable, that's another thing. Yeah.
So if I can, because it's itching me. is is
Click.
the separation between commercial and non-commercial. So negotiation, you have a value. You can deal with the abstract economy. So monetary is abstract system of bringing a value and exchanging with something else. Whatever you do, even before capitalism, you need to exchange with something else. You need to burn energy to hunt, to get food. Everything is a relation with spending something in exchange to getting something else. Even flowers, anything is making action of a relation with the world. So we call it in capitalism. It's called capitalism because stock. This is stocking and property. This is something else than exchange. And Christian society is telling that the market is bad. So is the word of Jesus in the Bible is telling commercial people, you go out of a church. There's something like that. It's coming from that. We are in this kind of system, moral system in the Western society. And so it's not a bad thing to try to define your value and try to find the value you want to exchange with. It's not bad. And in the moral system in our society, it's something bad. An artist shouldn't be commercial. So this is the first point. Second point is every artist, the word art, I prefer to, I think I told everyone to go out of the word art because as any cluster is putting you in a bag, in a basket, in a box, and you are then targeted by marketing and like LGBT or this kind of things that is more you being targeted than giving you a power. Because at the end, you are still individual inside this box and you have no power. As artists, you are in the box, so you can be targeted on Instagram for vanity with vanity galleries or magazine and all that, but then it doesn't give you any power because you're still alone at the end. So I prefer to tell that you do visual expression, and as visual expression, you need to find a value and try to find who wants to get the value. And then there's this schizophrenia. To come back to therapy, we find this schizophrenia because we cannot accept art can be commercial. So we separate from what we want to do with a drive, with what we want to do as a value to exchange with people who are interested in, while it should be the same thing. Charlotte,
Yeah.
you should really find a way to make your commercial stuff going together with the things that give you originates from a drive, and putting it all together is where you will be stronger in the way you, and art has nothing to do with that because it's something that is defined by people with authority, and and that's all. So we do our stuff, we exchange with value, and it comes likely from bad stuff. If someone has a very good stuff, like there's a guy I forgot his name. He's an illustrator. He worked for Walt Disney. He worked for many companies, and he had just a good life. But so good, though, he had children. He's so in love with his children, and then he's so good in digital artwork then he can express it a very good way, and he's mastering it. And it doesn't have to be a trauma; it has to be a strong thing that then you learn to communicate, and then he has a very strong community around him. I wouldn't call it a community, but maybe an audience, and it works. So. And the last thing is the art therapy and therapy. So what we're talking about is not art therapy. It's therapy and art. I mean, therapy and visual expression, because art therapy is not like cognitive behavioral therapist. There are some doing that, but it's another. Art therapy is using art for helping people. The therapist in psychology, they are using, they can be art therapists, but likely they are not using art, and they are dealing with artists. One of the best things for, I think it's one of the best advice I never followed from art school is one drag queen, my drag queen teacher drawing, excellent drawer, told me, you need to go to see a psychologist. He told me that it's the only thing you should do is the school you learn technique, but go to therapy. And I never listened to that. So yeah, I think
All right.
yeah, there's this link, like finding your value, and every time you spend energy trying to put all the things together, and then trying to find the people who are doing things alike and trying to do the things together to have more chance. Because at the end, another example, an artist is not happy about Gaza, what is happening about Gaza, okay, in Palestine or in Ukraine. When, and for example, these days, Ai Weiwei is in Ukraine on Instagram and he's telling, I am in Ukraine and Ukraine people, they're happy. But then this is good, but this is individual. This is an individual message. Like, okay, I worry because he's born from the elite and he's good at what he does. He can have an influence, but a normal artist would have maybe 1,500 followers, and then tell, "Oh, I'm not happy about Gaza," and it's between two advertisements from uh, Temu or
Yeah,
eBay.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
wrong with
So
Chinese?
you, we are becoming, you are literally silenced, becoming individualistic, while individuation is finding the place in the society, finding value and linking.
I think it's really interesting what you said to regard with, I think, being called an artist too. I talk about this a lot with a lot of people, in the sense that um, I personally feel that the term artist has been, in a way, you could say devalued or watered down to a certain extent. I think because, again, like the question now comes up all day, every day, of like, okay, what is art? What's accepted as art? And I don't think a lot of people who consider themselves artists even want to have a hierarchy anymore. And I think, what for well over 4,000 years, gave art its sort of stature. Um, what was that? It had hierarchy, right? We could figure out who was, um, from a technical standpoint, uh, or even an expressive one, better or worse, right? And so I think that that's broken down. And so for myself, not feeling like I fit into that, or that I even want to label myself as that, I call myself a craftsman or an artisan over that, because what I do is so heavily tied to trying to do things in a very logical, time-tested, traditional way that seems to fit more for me. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, like you were saying, again, it seems like you're saying the individual has no power in this sort of sea of artists, right? Everybody's an artist and they're doing all these things, and trying to be an individual about it. But, maybe the more powerful thing is becoming, part of a collective who have a common goal. And so they speak out with a larger voice in unison. Is that what you're kind of saying? Or?
No, because individuation is finding your place as individual. It's
Mm,
not going
Right.
against individuality, it's going against individualism. Like terrorism, the extremism of individual is what
okay.
liberal economy is doing. But
Okay.
individuality is very important because we perceive each other as individual.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's
But it's
interesting.
using both, like just using both. Like if you know who you are as an individual, then you're likely to connect with the people you can authentically connect with and best work with as a collective. So you're kind of promoting both, Greg?
Yeah, no, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm putting the question out there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like we say in Chinese chopsticks. So have chopsticks. You say, oh, one chopstick you break like this, and then on screen or in the classroom, the teacher breaks a chopstick and say 2, 3, 4, and then you can't break it. So together we're stronger is our communist upbringing. So that I'm used to the more collective thinking than individualism expression. But when you mentioned the Major Will mentioned the hierarchy. My first idea is today we have hierarchy. We rank artists by their net worth.
Yes. Yeah.
That like Ivy Way is ranked as a top 10 Asian artist in it's still
Top one.
in a top one, like so it's like unless you're Ivy Way level as an individual artist, you are nobody in the sea of artists live and dead and dying. So it's really like we have no voice unless maybe you join a group. But again, joining a group, it also comes with some, like Laura said, how do you know who to work? Luckily, it's not a professor who assign you. You can choose, like dating, you can choose. Not like everybody can choose right at the first time, but you can always, join a new group. There's no life binding commitment to stick with one group. But normally the group is my problem. Normally the group is stick together by social class, background, the type of trauma, like the AA group. And
Yeah.
if you never tried alcohol as a, I don't know, diehard Muslim, you walk into an AA group, they will not accept you. They will say, well, why you're here, right? So it's almost like you must be damaged in a certain way to be accepted. Like, the rotten apples go to one basket, right? Like the green apples goes to another, and the ripe ones goes to the supermarket. We are sorted by so fast today by our labels. And I see artists has 3 blocks in their screen. Like right now we see screens in different blocks. It's almost like a maze, but we have like 3 blocks. One block, central block, is like the artistic practice. What kind of technique, what kind of media I use, this. And then on one side, you have the past trauma or current trauma is like the baggage. And then on the other side, you have the market, which is the future preoccupation of, am I going to make money? Am I going to make it? Am I going to be on the pedestal? Or even like where the rent come from the next month? Like you have the pressure from both ends, the financial end and the psychological inner self end. And then in the middle, you have your artistic practice. And it's very hectic to separate the 3. If you separate the trauma and say, okay, I'll keep my trauma not in public, I will stick to me. And then I say, I will make a business to support my art, but it will not be my art. So I'm not affected emotionally. But then you have 3 separate businesses.
Yeah.
And that is struggle.
I
The
think,
best is to link.
I think so a few things I think Major, like very interesting. You mentioned like you call yourself a craftsman, an artisan, because I looked at your Instagram. You're very classically trained artist. You're very figure anatomy, and that's my background actually. I actually chose the major illustration instead of fine art because I wanted that skill. I wanted that skill set, and that's very important to me. And I'm like obsessive with technicals, and but then if you go out the world, the sea of artists, you can see 90% of artists actually are not. The focus is not on the technique, they're not with anatomy, and that's okay. And market wise, like a great, amazing figure drawing is not going to sell. Like that is not what people are looking for. And I mean, it sells, but it's not like the major market. And for me, like I am still obsessed with figure drawing. I still do it. I go to open studio. Like I will never stop doing it. And for me, that's for me. Like as an artist, that's what I like to do. And if it sells, it sells. But I don't care to sell that. And I also personally think that a figure drawing does not convey personal stories or emotions necessarily. And for what Mo was saying, you know, you have the trauma, the techniques, the business side of things. And I think we can replace the word trauma with experiences, because I think when you tell personal stories, it doesn't necessarily have to be trauma. And that is something that I've been working on. Like I've been through a lot of things, but when I make my art, something that I realize I really enjoy doing is making something that brings joy. And when you see my art, you're like, okay, that makes you like smile, makes you happy. But then you probably also say, okay, this person probably has been through something. But still, it's like essentially like my art is happy art maybe. So yeah, and then the, you know, me separating my art, my business, what sells, what doesn't sell, it kind of comes up very naturally. I think there's like this theory that, you know, you might think that you're doing 100 different things, but because you are the person who's doing all this, it eventually all connects. It will all be authentic to yourself. Like maybe, you know, today I made a painting like I'm painting there. I have my figure drawing. I have my very commercial like cat stickers, and I'm opening a craft studio. You know, from a grand scheme of things, okay, they're kind of like all different category of art, but then people was at the end they would tell me, yeah, they all look like you made it because it's me. I am the common factor of all this different art, and it comes naturally. It's not like I'm trying to brand them all into the same thing. In my head, they're very different, but then people still see, okay, that's all by Charlotte. So yeah, that's something that I think a lot of us as artists, we're thinkers. We think a lot. We're like, what are we like? What route we should pursue? What are we obsessed with? What do we like doing? What should we do to make money? But then I think at the end of the day, the 200 things you do, it will still be coherent, cohesive.
I have something to say about that. I have a lot of different practices too. And I don't think that you can count on other people making that connection. You have to make the connection, and you have to write about it. You have to explain how your practice as an illustrator is also affects your practice as a fine artist, as practice. And you're now going to become a business person who's going to bring joy to crafting. You're going to be creating community, you know, and so you might become involved in your business community. You know, you might join like I've gotten involved in politics. All that stuff I consider my art, but you have to explain it to people. You can't leave that, because they're going to say, oh, she just does a bunch of different stuff and it doesn't have any connection. So I think it's hard. You have to like make that narrative, and the narrative can change as you grow older, but it's not, don't just leave it up to chance. You know what I'm saying? Or have some, if you can't write about it yourself, you'll hire somebody. I constantly am hiring art writers who have some cachet, because that's important, you know, and they need money too, you know. So I say, I'm hiring you to write about me, you know, and then I have that essay and I can use it. So that's another way to do it.
Yeah, there's a really interesting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, excellent point. Totally agree.
Okay.
Because the people were not going to investigate your life. They are not paid as a private investigator to find out why you did this, because you are not under, you know, the crime scene. The police are not interrogating others to say why you did this. Nobody would find out automatically. The only way is for you to push, for you to write about it, and words are the furthest traveling, the best preserving media so far. And of course, video is better, but words, like, you know, even thousands of years ago's poem we find on the stone. So it's like it can go far and wide and broad. So it's definitely go-to method to promote your brand and preserve your story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, it's it's interesting too, because I feel I think again my feelings always kind of come back to the sense of like community and who you have around you, because I what I always hear, and this is just my own personal experience, I'm hope no way I say this like comes off wrong to anybody else, but it's like I get so like sick and tired of the notion of I think needing to be part of this rat race, because I hear a lot of the things we talk about, right? Entering the art market and being part of these fairs and being seen, and how are you gonna, do all these business opportunities. And it just, to me, like, I don't know if it's just I'm in an unhealthy, mental state or what, but it feels like this big rat race to me. And I just continually like feel like I'm beat down by that, because I just don't think it seems that I think we're seeing the consequences of it now throughout a lot of society across the planet, is that people are just not happy with that, because I don't think we're meant to live like that. And so I keep thinking about, okay, what does my ideal life look like? And I've come to this place now where I'm like, if I could find a place that I felt, very comfortable living, and I could make, a number of friends there who were reliable, and I could be reliable for them, and we could all participate in each other's lives, and ideally those would be a lot of different creative people, whether they're painters, sculptors, musicians, poets, author, anything like that. But even scientists, mathematicians, lawyers, whoever, if they're just interested in participating. I think that, and this is why I think Europe intrigues me so much, Greg, from our conversation, is that, and Mo as well, from the standpoint of that, to an American, at least like myself, it almost seems like a lot more romantic to me, right? Because I hear all the time that while maybe people aren't making as much money as they are in America business wise, the people who are working there, they're making a little bit less, but like the cost of living is a bit better. And the positive end of it too is that there's quality of life that comes from that, right? That people are going out more, they're walking, they're able to see art. There's the entire community and the culture is saturated in the history of that. The new is built on top of and integrated with the old. So there are all these things I think about where, for me, when we talk about therapy, the therapy isn't so much for me like going and talking to a person and being like, I have these problems and I need you to help me figure them out, but rather putting understanding who I am. And that could be part of going to a therapist, is better understanding who you are, and then putting yourself in a position, right, that harmonizes best with that. Because I think I could live a very modest life but still be very happy if I were able to paint and draw regularly, maybe have a few shows off of that, and teach. If teaching were how I made my money, I'd be more than happy to do that. But I mean, I'm in this sort of catch-22 in America, where really nobody's gonna be paying for the kind of teaching that I have to offer in this area, and the people who would be paying for it are in a city where then by teaching I would not be able to make enough money to live, right? Because like New
Online
York.
teaching.
I'm
Online
sorry.
teaching. Do you have a master's?
I don't have a master's yet, no, but
So, but that's, if you want to teach, you need a master's in the United States. But most of the classes, I mean, I'm involved. That was how I made my money. And now I'm still involved with community college. Community colleges, real 4-year colleges, they're all going to online. They're all going to online. So you can live anywhere. And if you're a good teacher, you can teach online. It's the future. It's the future
Yeah.
of education.
I totally
yeah,
agree. Because I
It's-
was suggesting Major to do a free master in Europe, because he studies Renaissance type style painting, and that make a lot of sense to go to Southern Europe, Italy, or like somewhere in Europe. It would be also valuable when he teaches back in the States, because European style painting with European style education, that really works in balance. I think it's in a harmony. The only thing is, then most of the free public universities in Europe, in continental Europe, speak a different language. None of the continental European languages are English. I mean, continental Europe, I mean, except for England, because Brexit, they're no longer in Europe and they don't really offer it for free. But the rest of like my school, I'm paying 300 euro, which is like 300, like
Dollar.
$20 or something, $330 a year for my PhD. And I pay out of my pocket because it's so cheap. I didn't even ask for scholarship because for this, I mean, I'm gonna fill up a form, you know, and if they give scholarship, they will give to the students more in need in exchange for work than excellence, because in Europe it's not excellence based. They don't really value excellence and competitiveness, in my opinion. Here in China, it's all excellence based. Like if you're not the best, then nobody cares. But here it's like you need it, they give it. It's more like need based, like PD based, I would say. And they give you 1,100 a month for a teacher's assistant job when you are doing your PhD here. Normally not to master student because they are usually young, and so it's also an option to do it here. If I mean PhD to make money, well, to have some compensation, or paying out of your pocket for MA, which is really a few $1,000s. Not a big deal.
Yeah, that's the big part of like what I noticed too, is just so for me, that I think in these conversations over the next couple of months too, for like Greg and I, and I'm sorry, I don't want to make this about me, but if anybody has like advice, because I know a few of you have gone through
I think
the
all of us
residency.
can.
It's I mean, for me, it's like trying to decide, okay, like what is the best thing to do? Is it to go back to school and get that MFA? Because I think part of doing that MFA is obviously going to be making work. So it's like, can I kill two birds with one stone and be in a more stable environment where I can make that work and have some access to a collective in a certain sense, or do I try to, make it work just like living out there and making the work? And whenever we have conversations like that, it's like, it seems like, oh, this one sounds really good. Oh, but then I hear this one again, that one sounds really good. And so trying to figure out like what the best idea is,
Yeah, we can all help you. If you have questions, you can reach out also individually by email. I think all of us have multiple MAs, or MMA. So Greg doesn't like me bragging about my 6 university degrees. He was teasing me. He's like, "Wow, why you have to brag?" I'm like, "I have the same as everybody else." So
you can brag. You can brag. We like it. Yeah.
So
Major, have you already looked at like the ateliers in the US? They seem to be making
have.
a comeback, like the
I
one
have.
in Philly. And, yeah.
I'm a horrible snob. So ever since I met a teacher from the Art Students League, his name's Frank Porcu, he finally spoke to me and demonstrated things to me in a way that I had been looking for, but I didn't have like the knowledge or the language to communicate. I had been feeling this thing. I'm like, okay, like I get that they're doing something different in the 14, 15, and 1600s, right? I'm like, and it's totally different to what's like being done now. Like I can tell. And then he starts talking to me about it, and I go, oh, okay, this is why I wasn't really feeling like I wanted to go to an atelier or I wanted to do this. And so my critique of the ateliers has always sort of been that they teach people to copy exactly what's in front of them. Like I took a online webinar with, I don't know if you know Will St. John, if you know that name, or Colleen Berry. And they did one, and they talked about, they kind of like complained about how hard it is to like work from life and making drawings, and that's why they do everything from photographs now. And I'm not against that, but I'm kind of like, is it because it's hard to work from photographs, or is it because is it because it's hard to work from your drawings that you make from life or your paintings that you make from life? Or is it because you weren't really taught how to like, think and construct things in a way that was done historically, the way they understood? And then talking to Frank, I was like, oh, that's why it was, is because you're being taught a very particular method that relies upon something being in front of you and like not changing and getting it right back into the right way. And so for me, I'm like trying to get away from that. That's like really hard because there's not a lot of people at all who know how to draw and paint like that anymore. You get it more in the illustration. I think probably, Charlotte, you've probably seen a lot more like that, and which is why it's good to choose that. And you see it a lot with the comic book illustrators, but they don't really do a whole lot of like academic teaching or anything like that, and so they're a little bit more, I think, reclusive. Yeah, but
Mm.
yeah, I have thought about it, and especially when I was like looking for schools, I really thought about them, and then as I went on, I was kind of glad that I didn't, and that I went with LCAD because it was a little bit more exposure, and it wasn't as like dogmatic, right? That you're going to do it, this way or nothing, and so.
Anna?
Getting an MFA in the United States has nothing to do with skills. It's not going to teach you
Right.
any skills. And they're going
Right.
to tell you to throw your skills away and go get some
Yeah.
mud and do something. But it teaches you how to write, and it teaches you how to teach. If you do want to teach, you choose a program which allows their MFA students to teach the undergrads. And it teaches you how to defend your work. It's just about talking. It'd probably be a frustrating experience for you, but if you do want to teach, that's the only way. You have to have an MFA.
Yeah.
You can speak with Greg because he was the frustrated person who was pushed away from the technique. He was technical at the beginning of the course. And then when he finished his MFA, he was completely pushed to a different direction. He was frustrated. So maybe he can share later on some of these thoughts.
It teaches you how to behave. Like, if we want, for example, a partner, for our company or for our association on Very Private Gallery, what we look at is the studies, because someone who didn't do the studies, likely they won't come at the appointment at the hour you care. They won't behave. Consistency. They are not domesticated for the society. So it's how you get involved in the society. You get you join the rank, and it works like that. And and so it is. But yeah, it's yeah.
I just want to say one other thing to Major, and I have to go. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
where you live as an artist does matter. Even if you're interacting online and teaching online, I think where you live is important. And if you're unhappy with where you live, if you can move, I would move. And it doesn't, I live in a very rural place, but it is very rural and filled with artists, because I live in Joshua Tree. And so all of the artists who are in LA and San Francisco and San Diego who are pushed out because they can't afford the coastal prices come here. And so every other person is an artist, but it's very exciting to be in that kind of rural place. Just like it can be exciting to be in LA or New York if you can afford those places. So I definitely recommend if you're frustrated with where you live, if you can, I would leave. I would go somewhere.
Thank you for saying that too, because I mean, a big part of my plan too, going to the residency, is to do some looking around, a little bit of traveling if I can. I have a friend who lives in Madrid now with his girlfriend who's from my area. And so, I could do maybe like, the 3-month tourist visa and do a little bit of traveling potentially and see if, okay, maybe there's somewhere I could land, but it's really on my mind because, there's just something not rewarding about a lot of the areas, at least that I found in America at this point, that seems like I can kind of sit down and meet those like-minded people and progress, right? I think it takes like an emotional sort of clarity and a mental one too to progress with that, and it's pretty stifling. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for the conversation. It was super wonderful.
Thank you,
guys.
Anna.
See you
Bye.
next time.
It's nice meeting you.
Major, I totally understand. I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's been a kind of a battle for me my whole life, and my family's here. I have a husband who has a job here. It would be very difficult for him to leave. And we raised our daughters here, but now they live in New York and Florida, and they're young adults now. So there's a little bit of a shift, maybe an opportunity, but I mean, every time I talked to Christine about this one time, Christine O'Donnell. I don't know if you've met her yet on one of the group calls. She participates in some of these group calls, and we were talking about place, and some of her advice to me was like, really dig up all of the curators, all of the artists, all of the gallery owners that you can in your state, and build relationships. And what I wanted to say is, Christine, you don't get it. What it's like living in a rural, poverty-stricken state
Yeah.
that's like lowest on all the metrics in the whole country.
Mhm.
And her advice was still good. Like you totally should do that. Like sometimes we get discouraged and then we're blind toward opportunities that are just right there, or maybe an opportunity that we could create for ourselves. But location, if you're available to participate in these things where there's more artists and more art activities, if you can put your work in the back of your car and drive it somewhere that's having an event or a show or a pop-up show or a museum representation of local artists, or if you've got things like that, and then if you don't, it can kind of hurt your soul. You just feel,
Yeah,
I don't
for
know
sure.
it sounds like the way you're talking, like you have tasted what it's like to be in an art rich, open-minded environment. And then
Yeah.
when you don't have it, you then know like, I don't really align with this place. And that's a hard thing to really resolve. And making a decision to move is scary, but it's something I totally understand everything you've said about it, and have been going through the same thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a lot of you kind of hit the nail on the head. So if I hadn't said earlier, so LCAT is Laguna College of Art and Design. So
Yes.
Laguna Beach was an arts colony, right? And it turned into
Yeah.
a small city or town, whatever you'd want to call it. But yeah, so I was in that, and people were super open. There's galleries, every other space in town is a gallery, that type of deal. And then I lived in Irvine, which is a big kind of college area for UC Irvine and all that sort of stuff. So I met a lot of really cool people out there, and I've met a lot of cool people here too in my hometown, especially just recently. But I think the idea is like, that prosperity. Like, I don't just want to be alone making the work. I want to be able to share life with people. And so, yeah, absolutely. But I'm in a fortunate position where, I'm getting older, and so it becomes more and more embarrassing, right? To be, I think, heavily supported by your parents, but
Older? You're young. You're a baby.
in America, it's like, you're really, I mean, you have this like psychological thing that I think a lot of people put on you, where it's like, you're kind of, you get looks like, you're still, like, you're living with your parents, and it's like,
You're
yeah, I'm trying to
20,
get out.
you're 27 now? 27?
Yes, yeah.
Oh God, you're so young. Sorry.
Don't be
Please.
confused by the barb and you think he's an old man.
Yeah, right.
27. But also, like, think about it. Like, a lot of super successful artists, have a trust fund or have a source of income.
Yeah.
So if it comes in a certain vehicle or package, it's acceptable,
Right.
So
Yeah. And so that's why I've, like, in recent years been like, I had a girlfriend before, we're no longer together, who really made me feel bad about my parents helping me out a lot. And when that ended, I had to do a lot of, like, I did some therapy sessions and things like that to get over that. I figured out those were more like her issues and they were mine. My parents have made it clear to me, they're like, we had you and decided to, like, stop with you, and we're putting it all in for you. Like, we want to, I have a really great relationship with them and my entire family. And so, they're telling me, they're like, go out to Spain, we're going to help you do what you need to do, that go figure that out, go do this residency, go visit your friend, right? And see those things. And if you're, halfway across the world and you're happy, that's going to make us a lot happier if you're here and miserable.
that is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Like, I'm
That's
very
wonderful.
wealthy in a lot of, like, ways that I think a lot of people aren't. And I don't know what it is with our family, but we've made a lot of, like, really influential connections. It's just about, like, okay, how do I, drum up the, I talked to my friend who I went to LCAD with recently, and she said, nobody can see, what's in your head. Like, they need to, they're probably willing to, throw their contacts and their funds at you because they're very close to me. They're pretty close with my family and stuff, but they need to see something first. They can't imagine it, right? They want to see that there's going to be the value there and that they're actually putting something into you. So that's what I'm trying to figure out now.
You have to know. I'm trying to learn. You have to know you have to know how to ask for help, but before you ask for help, you have to know what you want, like what your deepest, like, what are you asking for?
Yeah, right.
And
Maybe
you can take-
help.
I need help.
Yeah.
But if
What do you
somebody
ask
said,
for
well,
help?
how can I help you? Would you be
Ah,
like,
yeah, you need
let
the
me think about it.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, treat it like a project proposal. You're proposing, I want to reach this goal. Let's say like a fundraising campaign. You want this goal is maybe move to Spain and have a master's, and you have the benefits factor. You have the what it takes, and then you kind of have that registered and pitch to people.
It's what Moz did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. That's very helpful because it's funny, you really are like going to somebody with like a begging bowl, but with a lot of those people, you don't want to just be like, give me money, right? Like you can't be like that. You have to approach it in a way where it's like they understand there's value in what they're doing, and it's almost like I don't want to say their ego needs to be stroked, but they need to feel that they are participating in something of
Yeah.
like social or like sort of like an altruistic value, like they're actually doing something for somebody who cares, right? It's not just like, well, I just want to kind of go on this random project and and that sort of thing. And there's two people in my life right now that I'm really trying to keep in contact with and utilize them. One of them is they're a really successful co-founder of a company that transitions like big time like CEOs and like type A very successful people from their lifelong positions into retirement. And then another is a woman who's a professor at Harvard, and she commissioned me to do a portrait that's now in the Vatican of Father Hans Zollner. And so I'm sorry, so she doesn't have a lot of like like wealth to provide me, but her contacts, she's made it clear, she's like, those are at your disposal when you're ready to like do something. She's like, I can talk to Father Zollner for you, and I'm sure be happy to set you up with galleries and things. So
How old is she, the person you mentioned with contacts?
I think she said she just turned 60. You wouldn't guess it though. She's very youthful.
Okay, that's good. You still have 10 years.
More. It's a woman.
Or
20
yeah,
years.
okay, 20. Yeah, women live longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to time it. So we say the worst of our generation in China is we have one child, and by law we need to have only one child, and that is we don't have brothers sisters, younger or older, to continue the relation, to expand our network. Because a lot of people, I ask, how did you get the gig? And say, oh, my brother worked with this guy, and he was blah blah blah. And say, oh, my brother is an artist. Oh, then they start working. So the one thing is family ties that usually you cannot untie. So this relation is very stable. Then the next chance you have is through marriage, merger and acquisition.
Yeah, and it was the old time because now in China it has changed. Okay, you can have two child or three. No, it's pushed. And
10 years ago.
Charlotte has been pushing some info.
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
So that's all for major. Because I kind of understand like your routes of like interest, I guess. So I went to Ringling College of Art and Design, and I believe to become a faculty, you don't need a master. You just need to have a stellar portfolio. And like you said, if you have the resources, you don't need a master in fine art. You can have a master in education, a master in art history, whatever. That's 1 year or 2 years. And if you need a scholarship, I believe UCF is like the only one that has full scholarship in fine art, MFA. So that's pretty cool if if academia is where you want to pursue. And me going to Ringling in illustration, like everyone is extremely like, we have so much respect for figure drawing. We have 4 sessions a week at least, like 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
And like
That's really good.
Right. So we're very heavy on figure drawing, and the people there, like, they care about it. And I sent the first one I sent is atelier in Sarasota. It's not affiliated with Ringling, but you could work there or find a community there. It's all Sarasota, Florida. And then Ilya is one of my favorite professor ever. He went to Russian Imperial Art, whatever. That's like the 7 years.
Ilya who?
Ilya, I don't know.
Miro is the
Miro.
second link.
Miro.
How do I see those? I can't see them.
Oh,
on
it's
here.
in the chat.
In call messages.
So if you go to the screen on the right, the second to the extreme right, lower corner, or if you use the phone, you might see it in a different position. You see the chat with everyone. You click on chat with everyone. You see the links.
I put them on your WhatsApp if you want.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see in call messages here, maybe. Yeah, okay, I see here. Yeah. I know Ilya Miro.
Okay, and then so Ilya, he is an amazing figure painter, drawer, Russian, just traditional academic styles. So he is a great professor, and then he had his side gig called Blue Hippo Artist, where it's like a art retreat thingy, and they do a location retreat where you do plein air, and it's like in like I don't know, freaking like Portugal, it's
Right,
a,
yeah.
so you're like on vacation painting with him, and it's great. Like if I could afford it, I would do it because he's my favorite professor ever, and we have the same birthday. And then George Pratt is another one of my really great professors. He's also just he's a nerd. Like he's obsessive. Like imagine a drug addict and the drug is art. Like that's him. Like it's crazy. Like they're obsessive, and I miss being surrounded by those people because I'm like that, and I feel like that part of my brain's not being tickled when I'm like in Arizona. And George Pratt in summer he teaches at Illustration Academy for different kind of stuff, and there are all this professor, they do their side gigs teaching on the side and stuff. He also teaches at New Master Academy. It's an online school. It's amazing. I graduated from art school. I still pay for it just to like take extra classes for things I already learned. But then I just want to, even if it's the same figure drawing, if you learn from different professors, you're learning different things, right? So I like learning. I'm a nerd in that sense. So those are good resources you can reach out to, you can reference from, and maybe like a career outlook. Because I think, for someone who is very into like the technical, like artisan side of, art, it's great to be in like teaching because the next generation is going to need someone like you to teach them that hard skills. And, for people who say, oh, you should paint from photo, like, fuck that. Like, that's not how it should be. Like, you need to.
Now they say AI painted.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just big effort. Like, we don't stand that. Like, draw from life, paint plein air, draw from things that moves and stuff. Like, that's how art should be trained in my
And
opinion.
you get a personal connection too, especially because I'm so interested in portraiture. There's something about it now where and Greg and I have been talking about this in our meetings where with portraiture, I'm seeing these really like straightforward suit and tie, plain background, and most of history they like put all these narrative elements in there. And so I'm like, and I even feel I could go a step further. So that's sort of where my creative niche is at right now. So
I can't believe I forgot to mention this for you. Maybe you already know about this, the Portrait Society.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So pay the membership. I think it's only $35. They have convention, they have competition, and these are your people. Like, for real. Like, these people are all just portrait nerds. They get together just to paint heads. And then in DC they have the portrait like National Gallery, and people that painted the Obama portrait and stuff. Like, that's big money. Like, if you're really into portrait like that, there is a way to make money off it. Not that money is that important as an artist, but but yeah, like if you're a very skilled like academic artist, like there are ways, and I think it's easier to find a community more than any other kind of artist if you're an academic artist, because like we are art nerds. Like we like live and breathe this thing. Like it's very exciting. Yeah, it's very exciting. Like this is like your calling, and there are communities there, and
and there's so much tradition behind it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, thank you for sharing that. That was really great. I appreciate that. And so, there are a few new things on there, and there's some things I've seen before. And I think part of my problem is like I've sort of like poo-pooed a lot of that stuff too, just because I was afraid of getting caught up in like the atelier type stuff, right? Where it's like there's so many other people. I went and did a competition last year at the Salmagundi Club, and I actually I was part of final selection, so I was like the last 10 paintings they chose, and there were like 50 people there who did that. So I was like, really, and that's my first competition I've ever done. And but all the people who won all went to Grand Central Academy, Florence Academy, that sort of thing. And so you're seeing a bias happen in there, and I'm like, but now it's so funny, and I would have been right on board with that for most of my education, and now I'm starting to like. I'm so angry because I had this roommate who was just like head over heels of Lucian Freud, and I could not understand why he was. And now I'm kind of being like, yeah, that Lucian Freud painting's kind of cool. I'm like, I'm starting to see that stuff. And I found a Japanese gentleman too. I can't remember his name at the moment, but I just found him, and I really like what he's doing too. So it's starting to get me to the point where it's like, okay, I can loosen up a little bit, and I can start doing things, and I can be okay with what I do not being hyper realistic or being perfect. It can be this thing, and just as long as I spend time and work on it, I think is kind of where I need to get back to. So, but that's enough about me. I feel like I've dominated this.
No, but have a
So-
look. I think Laura is into portraiture. Have a look. I shared an email to everyone so you can see everybody's work. And Laura, you are very traditional in your work as well. In portraiture, you do a lot. And Charlotte also. But
Thank
even
you.
if you replace, but you make a lot of portraiture, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Yeah, they all
Yeah.
like classical techniques.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and funnily, in propaganda, we say propaganda art. It's the most well-known and the most viral propaganda art is portraiture.
It's
The
church.
portrait of Mao, the portrait of
Not, I mean,
Obama. The,
Church. Portrait of Jesus and Maria for me is the biggest propaganda.
Yeah.
Propaganda for us is a neutral term. It's not a good or bad. My dad works for the propaganda office, and it's
So-
written like that. It's not it's what it is.
So there are these two branches, the technical fine art, they don't master the message, the concept, they don't master what they want to get to communicate to the society. And then there's the contemporary artist, he tries to focus on the message and has no technical approach that is not
Yeah.
important.
One is more conceptual, one is more technical.
And while, in fact, if you really want to deliver a message, it should be a group of people working together on the same painting with a master, mastering the message and the technical. But then you become dangerous.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like a church.
I
Yeah.
know the church is employing. The church is like
Yeah.
Walt Disney, and
You become
the-
dangerous. You dominate the world and make a crusade.
yeah,
That's
there was
dangerous.
this thing about all the Hollywood and Walt Disney promoting, silently promoting what is what Israel is doing right now. There was some documents about that. So, or you are following a big agenda of people, or you are alone mastering a technique without thinking about the message, because it's therapeutic, it's hermitage. You go on the technique is good because then you're in your comfort zone. You don't connect with the world, or you are contemporary artist, you try to connect with the world, but then you connect nothing because you are just on the conceptual atmosphere where nobody is connecting to you. So there's nobody, like there are some few doing all these things together. I don't have any example in mind.
Ai Weiwei actually
Yeah.
he can be technical, but he doesn't use his technique.
He has technical, but then he doesn't give a fuck of the people working for him. They are all anonymous, and he doesn't
they're
tell the
Chinese.
name. Yeah, they are cheap Chinese, and
Flavors.
yeah.
I mean, like your iPhone, you don't also know who made the iPhone, So
Oh,
Have y'all seen this book? It's a good
No.
combination of extreme extreme technical skill plus
Message.
message content concept. And it represents a variety of artists. I just happen to have it
Barrier. Okay,
sitting
I'll
here.
write it.
You mean message? You mean like political message, or you mean just message like today's a
They
good
can
day?
be political, but no, not necessarily political.
Oh, okay.
But they're
Okay.
just they have the technical skills that Major has been talking about getting trained in and wanting maybe more training. And
Okay.
then they choose when to use those technical skills and are able to combine or really develop a concept where there seems to be a really good balance with all the artists in this book. I just love it. It just happened to be sitting right next to me because I was looking at it the other day.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
Possibly rare.
I see like a lot of celebrities and stuff, and there's a vanity element to that where it's like, oh, I'd really love to be somebody who does something very official for them, right? It's painted from life and then it's shown, right? Because I think all those are the coolest things. But I also want it to be something where it's like, I'm not just here to just to make you look good or to prop up your image. You already have like a lot of PR people to do that, but I want to also spend time with that person, know who that person is, and then use
Yeah.
my skills to present a deeper, more intimate side of who they are. And I think people then really connect with that because, you know, and this, like you're saying, Mo, like with propaganda, right? I don't think propaganda is good or bad. It's just, okay, who's trying to say what and come out on top, right? And it's like, I think that if you want to say something good about yourself, great. I can probably find a lot of good things about you, right? If you want to say a neutral thing or a bad thing about yourself, it's like, I can do that too. We'll talk about it. You know, I mean, I think people are becoming more open to those things now, and we can appreciate, you know, the good, the bad, and the neutral in everybody.
I do want to mention because there were a lot of themes going to education and the career as a teacher, and we mentioned about the masters. I agree that you don't need an MFA if you want to teach. You can do an MA. You can do MA in anything as long as you show the title. You know, the faculty, like a community college, will be happy. If you don't want to go into competitive teaching, like to top private schools, that's okay. But there is one small fine print though, is the scholarship or the money or the importance of fine art is going to be less and less with the turbulence in the world geographical, economical situation. Because, you know, like for example, I follow the PhD job market, not for actually going into it, but just to look, for example, in the Asia, Great China area, to see what kind of professors they're hiring in the top universities for teaching faculty. And I see 99% they are, or actually I haven't seen one single, I can say 100% in STEM. STEM. Zero is in fine art, and even like 1% is in just liberal arts. Like communications, because communication can be media study, can be art, but when they hire, they mean IT communication, satellite communication, that kind of telecommunication, not like, you know, face-to-face persuasion kind of communication. So they are putting less and less money, the public money, into art. So to have a like hiring, to have scholarship is going to be harder and harder every year. Not specifically to America, but everywhere else in the world as well. So if you want to, let's say, do something, I would say there are still rooms. If you're competitive, there are still rooms, but don't wait for a scholarship to do it, because you have one life. Every year you're growing older. So don't settle, just look for the one in your life and never comes. You know, settle for less. All you need is a master's. It doesn't matter from which university to get hired.
Yeah.
From a community college, fine. Just get one, and during the time it will enrich your life, because whatever experience you have, you will learn something from it. It's just a matter of learning more, learning less.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that too. I've noticed that, and I guess my hope is that, you know, I can always find some sort of avenue, because it would also just be wonderful to have a studio. And just to be like, hey, you know, like-minded people who want to learn this stuff, you know, maybe I can get my work seen to a certain extent where people are going, I'd love to study with that guy. And it's like, cool, come to the studio. But yeah, I really like to revisit the idea of a master's, because I kind of had like lost touch with what it was and why I wanted to do it before, and I think it really is a two or more birds with one stone type of deal. It's like I could kind of cover all these bases in one. So that's my phone.
Yeah.
I'm
If
about
you want something really hard,
I
you
have to
will
hang
get
up. I just realized.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, time running.
it. Time is
Yes, I
running.
just realized. Yeah.
Thank you,
so
Laura.
No,
nice
thank
seeing
you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul.
It's nice
Bye-bye.
meeting you.
I'll see you next time.
Yep. See you next
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, if you want something really hard and work towards it, you will get it, because the world situation is stable enough to get some small wishes. If you wish for world peace, probably you'll not get it. But if you wish
Right,
for
yeah.
a master's degree in affordable, you will get it. I can almost promise that you will get it. It's just if you say, I don't mind having scholarship to do an MA, or I don't mind having $1 million sugar daddy to give me all his inheritance. I don't mind having a gold bar settling like on my head when I walk out of the building. I mean, likely it will not happen. Like, don't mind, or like having this, like, I'm open to it is not enough, because they are people from third world country who are fighting hard to get what you want. And with the equal opportunity in Europe, a lot of the teaching staff are like racial minorities like me, because they're not supposed to discriminate. So great, let's take their jobs. And guess what? The indigenous people, I mean, indigenous Europeans, it sounds like they're native Europeans. Of course, they have to compete with the rest of the world now.
Yeah. I think it's really important that we find out your drive is your direction, what you want to you want to bring out there, and then naming it.
Yeah.
And when you name it, I think Charlotte told you can connect with the technical people. Like it's similar with portraiture, and I think people in photography, they have photographers, they have huge communities because they are technical as well. So you can appreciate, it's not like contemporary art or conceptual art. It's really something you can appreciate. So you can gather and talk. But I think because they have different political or societal values, they don't really emit, or they don't really talk about what they want to tell to the world, or their position. And I think it's better to find the thing you want to tell, and try to find these people. And then this is multidisciplinary gathering. And I think it's richer to have this. And the Charlotte, you were telling that the thing we agreed also is you want to bring joy to the people, because it was something I think you can allow me, it's not very personal. It's something you were not able to reach. You were like behind a wall, and you were not able to feel joy. You didn't have the means to get it, even if there was the possibility. So you experience the coming back to joy, and now you have this, and then you was, yeah, I'm happy, I have this system, and I want to share it. And what it is called, and how people alike, because there are other people like you, how to find them, you need to find the name of one sentence, how to tell that, and then you connect with them. And when you connect with them, you tell, yeah, I have this project. I'm alone. I'm doing this crazy thing. And I'm alone. I'm doing this crazy thing. And I'm a scientist, or I am a religious guy, or I'm a politician, and then you go together, and because you name it, you attract them. And then, of course, in a group, you have a face, you have a leader, we always perceive one leader. And maybe the leader is not the face, the social person, but always is when we perceive a group, we perceive it as one person. But this is not important, because if you gather and you group with these people, and we found the term of these people who have not the possibility to reach joy or happiness, there's a name for that in psychology. And if you find these people and
You mean depressed?
no, there's a term I forgot, because it's jargon talk system, but there's a term for that. Is when, yeah, I'm not a psychologist. Maybe we talk about that to the therapist. Is when it's like you cannot have a taste
Anhedonia.
of sugar.
Anhedonia.
Yeah, I think.
Anhedonia.
Yeah, anyway, I'm not even able to repeat it. and then you have these people and you work on that, and this is coming from negative bias in communication, so because it's negative. But then you have a solution to the problem, and you have an experience, and if you are more than one working on that and making collaborative work and emitting with a website and social media, then it's gathering, and people, then you need to work together and find aspects of collaboration. This is hard. Then naturally the group will be growing. And so the technical stuff is good, because it is the means. If you have experience, but then you don't know how to write, or you don't know how to draw, you don't know how to communicate your experience, then what is coming in our society is violence. Is the last
if you don't know how to like regulate your feelings or express them in a way that gets them out, it just bottles
so you
up.
have a craft of that.
Rage.
You have a craft of communication, but then you need to group with others, I think, doing that. Because the good thing about this is also a difference between, we are old. I mean, I am older. When I am nearly 50, so when you're older, you see time differently. But when you are 25, 26, 27, you need to experiment so many things and fail in many things. So this is normal. But in strategy, you need to put this direction ahead, and to put every piece of your chess, the game you are playing with your short life. When you are 50, you can see it better. But and then it is, that's why the old people, they you should do that, you should do that. But at the end, it's really good to experiment so many things. What is not good too is to communicate them all. You communicate one, or you gathering, you craft your narrative to a people. You experiment, but then you craft only one way, and then you attract the people you like. You don't need, when you are good and you are still working on that. For example, in Very Perfect Gary is nailing the definition. So then, if we craft it well and we make it clear, then we have a luck to have people like you, without spending ads, without doing anything. You contact us, and this is great. And this is what an artist should be doing, like not just trying to find an audience, but trying people with the same trajectory, and then saying, you come with me, we work together. And we work together, and online we have this luck, we can talk with whoever.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Especially with one where we have more than one languages. One language is even better. And on that major, you need to go in Italian,
French, or Spanish. Spanish is very practical. Italian is very important for your trade, and French is important if you want to go high society.
Yeah, forget about French.
I'm not saying that to speak to French people. I'm saying that
Yeah.
to be able to speak French.
Right.
Oh, there's German as well.
It doesn't hurt your air, because we lived in Germany, and I said, why don't you learn German? I still have my Goethe Institute A1 German certificate on my desk. I found it, it's like already like
you know the French people who are Germans, because Frank are a tribe of Germans, and one of the first king was Charlemagne. So it was a German, really like German tribe. We are German.
Right.
But we don't like to tell that.
Right.
Yeah, so you have a lot of room to experiment. You can experiment in Europe, learn new languages. You can go to find your ideal studio and have further education in the States. But if you just focus on technical things, I'm not saying that for sure, but I'm just saying that probably you work all your life, you will not reach Michelangelo or, I don't know, Rembrandt, or if you just focus on those, because likely you started too late. Like a ballet dancer, we train in China, or gymnastics at 3.5 years old. And if you go too late, likely you're already kind of have a too short time to catch up. So likely you try all your life, you will not reach as high as, the old masters, even the anonymous masters who are in Tate Museum. There's some, like they say, student. One of my favorite painting in the Tate, not Tate Modern, but Tate in London, is, it says anonymous student follower of Rembrandt.
Right.
I can see the painting is done by an architect, because the architecture is beautiful, and the person with the light and shadow is very minimal, like tiny person figure, a bit like Jean-Georges Inca, like a small person, and then big building interior of a church, and it's absolutely beautiful. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite painting in the entire museum, and it says anonymous. So likely, even if you reach like the second tier mastership, you're still going to be remembered in art history as the anonymous follower of someone, because to be the greatest person in 100 and 200, 300, 500 years is only a handful in the book. So
and the next history won't be Western, I think so.
Well, he's half Western, so
but I feel too, I'm not so, I don't have the greatest desire to be remembered as like the greatest or something like that. I mean, that would obviously be nice, but I think for me it's just wanting to get to a level for myself that is that I feel like I've done something. I haven't just sat on my hands, or I haven't just done nothing with it. I think a lot of people just fall off, and I think just to be able to keep going and get to a certain set, because I mean, for me, it's already like I have work that hangs in in the Vatican. It's like that's pretty crazy for 24. You know what I mean? But it just technically, like, I'm not satisfied, and I think that's just what my life will be. Is like, I don't think anybody's ever technically satisfied. They always want better and better and better, and that's what pushes them forward. So I have to run, but I really appreciate you guys having me on, inviting me here. It was really nice to meet everybody. And again, I apologize.
Just one thing, who created the Vatican?
I'm trying to remember exactly who did it. I know
Mussolini.
Who was it?
Mussolini.
Oh, like he established it as the.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
I make some
That's
research.
Crazy. So, do people still look poorly on that then, now that they think about it?
No, nobody knows. It's not communicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Propaganda.
So yeah, they've taken the thing and they let's hide that away, and so.
Yeah, I think you have some incoming calls. People are looking for you.
I do. So I got to run, but I really appreciate it, and I'll email you guys soon with hopefully for the next meeting. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.